Considering that I have now platinumed Elden Ring, I figured it was time that we did a tier list of all of the Elden Ring areas. I've done like 1 or 2 tier list videos on Elden Ring before, but I believe it was only on like the bosses. And I realized I've done area tier lists for all of the Dark Souls games, but I haven't done one for Elden Ring yet. The rankings go as follow: S, great, okay, annoying, and bad. I don't like how they have this set up. I'm actually going to change this to the traditional just like A, B, C, and F. So we got S tier, which is obviously like amazing. We got A, which is pretty great. We got B, which is just good. C, which is meh, okay, I can live without it, and then F is just bad. So let's not waste any time. First off, Hallowhorn Grounds. I'm gonna put that in like, it's okay. It's not a bad area by any means, but I'm pretty sure the Hallowhorn Grounds is literally just the boss fight with the Ancestor Spirit. And speaking of the Ancestor Spirit, I always get those mixed up, like the Regal Ancestor Spirit and the Ancestor Spirit, because they're essentially like the same thing and they're both underground. Yeah, this one ain't too bad. I'll leave it in a B. Lake of Rod is gonna go F. I don't know who QA tested this and then went back to From Software and said, yep, that's good to go. That's good to go in the game, because I can tell you right now, it definitely wasn't. Lake of Rot sucks. If you haven't been to this area yet in Elden Ring, consider yourself lucky. You know that new Scarlet Rot ailment they added into the game that everybody absolutely hates? Imagine swimming through a whole lake of that. That takes you a solid 4 minutes to cross. Like I said, if you haven't been there yet, I wish you luck. Leyndell Ashen Capital is gonna go S tier for me. I was sitting there just in awe the first time that I saw this in my original playthrough. It's literally just Leyndell, but I believe there's a little bit less of it that's actually accessible now since, you know, most of the place is covered in ash, some stuff gets covered up, but the place is just beautiful aesthetically. The soundtrack is amazing. The bosses in the Ashen Capital are amazing as well. Well, Sir Gideon Ofnir actually isn't that great, so Godfrey is really good, and would Radagon and Elden Beast count as Ashen Capital? I don't believe there's like a separate area for Radagon and Elden Beast, so I think they do count as Leyndell Ashen Capital, so that definitely deserves S tier in that case. Because while I do still think that Elden Beast is really annoying with how like much he runs away, and then you got the golden homing ball attacks, there's some things in that fight where I'm like, I wish some of it could have been changed. But overall, that fight in itself is pretty good. The spectacle is amazing. Then you got Radagon, and Radagon is easily in my top 5 From Software fights, period. And Godfrey, don't even get me started on Godfrey. Godfrey is an amazing fight. Granted, I feel like Godfrey is a little overrated in the Souls community. Like, he's a good boss. He's an amazing boss. I love Godfrey, but everybody's like, oh, he's a top 5. He's an amazing boss, this, that, and the other. And I don't really see it. Maybe there's something I'm missing. I mean, I know people are going to be like, oh, it's the lore, man. The lore is amazing. But lore doesn't make a boss top 5 for me. The boss itself and its gameplay mechanics is what makes it a top 5 for me. Lore is just bonus points. Like, Soul Ascender, that is my favorite From Software fight, period. Because, I mean, it's literally everything in one. You got different play styles, you got amazing lore, you got an amazing soundtrack, the spectacle of the fight is amazing, and then the fight mechanics itself, it never feels like an unfair fight. And there's not really any fights that I can think of in From Software's catalog that I would deem unfair besides, you know, like Beta Chaos. That one just sucks. But there is some bosses where, like, you die and it always feels like bullshit. Like when you go up against Millennia, for example, every time that you die to Waterfowl, even though it's not inherently BS, it just feels like BS because the move comes out of nowhere. But for a boss like Soul Ascender, it's very easy to tell, like, okay, I'm making a mistake here. Okay, I need to do this better. And that's why I like Dark Souls bosses better. I'm gonna have to, like, make a whole video on this someday. For some reason, Dark Souls bosses have always just stuck with me more because with Dark Souls bosses, I always knew when I was making mistakes. But in Elden Ring, I don't really have that. In Elden Ring, I don't have the drive every time that I die to go back and fight the boss like I did in Dark Souls. In Elden Ring, when I die, I'm just like, oh, okay, I gotta go back and fight him again. Let's see who kills who this time. And no matter how much I try to learn them, every time it feels like a race to see who's gonna take who out first. Even when I try to be slow and deliberate and learn the bosses, but in Dark Souls, it feels like this slow, methodical dance of death where I'm actually learning the bosses and learning from my mistakes. And like, while you do still have those moments in Elden Ring, it feels different, you know what I mean? Anyway, moving on, that tangent lasted for way too long. We have so many areas to go through, I need to pick up the pace a bit. So, Leyndell Royal Capital is another one that's gonna go S tier immediately. Morgott was an amazing fight. Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, like the golden shadow version of him, that was completely unnecessary. But then talking about the area itself, like the visuals, the first time you step out of here and you just overlook the entire city, you see the golden rooftops, the stone dragon, it is beautiful. And the thing is that I love most about it is how the soundtrack, it's so quiet, it's so ambient, you can barely even tell that it's there, but for what little soundtrack is there, just that little bit of music, the few keys you hear here and there just kind of adds to like the majestical, magical feeling as you're taking it all in, taking in the view. Don't even get me started on how massive this place is. It's not big enough to feel like a maze or to where it's like too confusing to get through, but it's just big enough to fill you with wonder even on following playthroughs. I tell you, to this day, I still get lost every time that I go to Leyndell Royal Capital, and I still love it. Every time I step out there for the first time, it fills me with that same magical feeling I had in the first playthrough. It's kind of similar to when you like first open the door in Limgrave and you step out and just see like the world, like that magical feeling. It's not up to that standard, but it's like, it's really close in Royal Capital. Mistwood, oh gosh, I am blanking. See, there are so many areas in this game that sometimes I'm looking at it and I'm like, was I there before? Even though I know I definitely have been there, it's just, there's so many that I forget what is what. Alright, so Mistwood is a location in Elden Ring. Region is located eastern, oh, it's in Limgrave. Oh, okay, never mind. I know what part this is now. I'll put it in like a C. I mean, it's okay. It's nothing amazing by any means. I don't even think there's any like main bosses there really. Like, it's okay. I mean, it's home to a lot of important entrances to other places. Like, it has the entrance to Nokron underground, and then the Siofra River well is here. But that's all it is really. It's more of like an in-between point. It's not really like a main important area, so that'll stay in C. Mohgwyn Palace, which I also believe is home to Mohg. Gonna go A tier for me. I think this place is really cool, and I love the different aesthetic. It's not something that we've seen in many other Souls games, like the color palette at the very least. I really liked how this place looked. The only reason it's going A is just because of the boss itself. Look, Mohg is a decent boss. I can't get past that ceiling stab gimmick. I cannot defend gimmick fights in Souls games. The way I see it, and feel free to disagree, I know all the hardcore Elden Ring fanboys are gonna attack me and jumping down my throat for this one instead of, you know, being an intelligent individual and explaining their stance. They'd rather attack and be toxic, which that's okay, that's on them, whatever. But when I think of a Souls fight and I think of a fair Souls fight, I think that the outcome of the fight should always come down to you and your skill and the time that you've invested into learning that boss. I feel like if you have taken the time, if you have taken the hours, the days, the weeks that it takes to fully learn a Souls boss, then that victory should be granted to you. Furthermore, I think that if you took the time to learn the boss that well, you should be able to get through the boss without taking damage. Because that's how it's been in quite literally like every single From Software fight up to this point. But with Mohg, he breaks that rule because he has the ceiling stab move, and you literally cannot avoid it. The only two ways to counter it are either to A, sit there and spam X or square, depending on what console you're on, or B, you get that stupid thing for your Flask of Physic, and I don't understand that. Like, why should it come down to a gimmick of if you drank a certain flask or not? Like, that's never been a thing. And I seen a comment a while ago trying to defend it, being like, well, once you finally find that Flask of Physic, then that's when you have that moment of, oh, that's how I was supposed to do it, that's how I was supposed to learn it. And when I sat there reading that, I was like, no, that's never where that feeling comes from in Souls game. It always comes from you actually overcoming the challenge, not just because you drank a certain Flask of Physic. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, this boss is stupidly easy. The only thing that makes him challenging is a stupid ceiling stab gimmick. It's similar to Malenia. Malenia is an absolute pushover, an absolute joke. The only thing that makes her hard is Waterfowl Dance. Otherwise, she is a joke. And if you go in there with freezing pots and you keep spamming that matter every time that the debuff goes away, well, then she's a cakewalk. That's just my view on it. I'll let the toxic comments roll in now. Nokron is gonna go S tier. You wanna know why? Because not only is this place amazing, but it's also home to Mimic tier. And if y'all know me, I love my Mimic tier. I'm just gonna go ahead and rank like all the underground places right now. Like Nokistella is S tier. Siofra River, S tier. Like, all of these underground places are amazing. I mean, they kind of like mesh together and blend together in my mind, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, these places are just absolutely beautiful. If you guys watch the original Elden Ring series, when I went to Siofra River, I literally titled the video, "This Elden Ring area left me speechless," because it did. It's so beautiful. You go down there, you look up at the sky, and I know it's not stars. I don't know what it is on the ceiling skybox of the area, but it looks beautiful. It looks like stars even though it's not stars. Similar to like Leyndell, for example, the areas are really big and there's a lot to explore, but it's not too big as to where it feels overwhelming or like a confusing maze. It just feels like it's just the right size. There's just enough to do, and obviously if you do Ranni's quest, these areas have huge importance in that quest and into getting that ending. That's one of the things that I love in this game. Like, no matter how big the areas are, no matter how big the world is, they found a way to make almost every inch of the map have some sort of layer of importance to the story or lore in some way. There's very little wasted space in this game. Besides, like, Lake of Rot, for example, this does not need to exist. The game would be fine without this. But otherwise, there is no wasted space. Everything has purpose. Okay, I'm blanking again. Ordina, I've been here. Like, I've been to all of these areas. I'm just forgetting what is what. Oh, it's this place. Yeah, you know what? Oh God, is it as, I do not like this area. The only purpose that this place serves is to be an in-between between the Consecrated Snowfield and Haligtree, and the puzzle here where you have to light all of the flames and you're getting chased by invisible people and the guys there, like the archers, are shooting at you and melting you in 2 to 3 hits. I cannot stand this place. F tier. Lucaria Academy is gonna go A tier for me. It's a place where I feel like there's a lot more that could have been done with it, but unfortunately the academy part of it. Like, the academy part of it, I feel like they could have done so much more with it. Do you know how cool it would have been to go into this academy and have, like, all these branching paths inside of the actual academy? Like, the academy itself, there's a few branching paths, but for the most part, it's pretty much just a straight shot to Red Wolf or Radagon, and then from there, it's a straight shot out up to Renala. I just wish that there was more inside of the actual academy. Like, I don't know, maybe some quests that involve this place, or just bigger areas in general. I'm not really sure what they could have done, but it's an academy, and if y'all know me, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, so as soon as I saw the academy, I was really excited. And while, yes, I know there's more to the area, like outside, and you can go on the rooftops, and you explore around, but that's not what I'm talking about. Like, the area itself is big, but I'm talking about the actual insides and rooms of the academy. With that, it was a little bit of a letdown for me, but the place is still amazing regardless. I just feel like maybe there's a few too many mages, if I'm being honest, but the Renala fight is absolutely wonderful. The spectacle of the Renala fight is great. I love how the first phase is kind of like a callback to Deacons of the Deep, and then the fight itself, it's a solid fight. With all that being said, when you include the academy, the outside areas, and the boss fights, definitely deserves A tier. I would put it S tier, but personal bias and wanting more from the academy keeps it from putting it in S tier. It's gonna go A for me. Deeproot Depths, I don't really remember much about this place. I'm pretty sure this was just tied to Fia's quest and then fighting Fortisax. So with that being said, I mean, the place didn't really serve much purpose besides that. I'm gonna put it in B. Not bad by any means, but it definitely doesn't, like, reach the standards of these places. Redmane Castle is gonna go S tier. Amazing. I really don't even know what to say about this place. The lore, the soundtrack for the place, the atmosphere, the boss fight. Everything about it is S tier. I'm just gonna say this, if you haven't been there before and if you have not experienced the boss fight there before, go do it. I don't care if you play it, if you watch a video on it, experience it somehow. Roundtable Hold is gonna go S tier. It's a solid little hub world. I mean, it's pretty chill. You know what? S tier. I don't know if I can put it there. I'll put it A. It's a decent hub world. It's not a bad area, but you know, it's nothing more than that. Just like a little safe space. I would deem an S tier hub world to be something like the Firelink Shrines or Majula, but this definitely ain't up to that standard. I'll put it A. Sellia Town of Sorcery. I just found this one to be more annoying than anything. This was really just a quick drop in and drop out area for me, so I could get rock sling. Maybe there's more to it. Maybe I gotta explore some more, but I'm pretty sure I saw most of what this place had to offer, so I'll put it B. Castle Soul, a decent dungeon. The boss there is cool. I'll put it in A. Yeah, I'll put it in A. It's a good area. That boss still whoops me though, dude. No matter how many times I've beaten this game and no matter how many times I fight him, Frostbite, I'm done. I also like how out of the way this area is, so it's not every player is gonna get to experience it, you know what I mean? Like, you actively have to seek it out, especially on a first playthrough before you get the map opened up. I really like that. It just shows that From Software has a certain level of respect for their players. Like, they aren't gonna hold your hand. It's like, well, it's there, you can miss it. The fact that they're willing to let players possibly miss out on certain content and leave the responsibility of finding it up to the players rather than holding their hand and throwing a bunch of, like, map markers on it, I love that. Crumbling, Farum, Azula is gonna go S tier for me. Once again, great visuals, great boss fights. The only thing that I don't like about this place is how many dragons are around here, especially that one right before Malekith, how he spams like all sorts of lightning beams at you and kind of makes it a nightmare to go through. I mean, the lightning beams aren't too hard to dodge, but like on that one run through where you get unlucky and it ends up striking you, it's a little annoying. But otherwise, the bosses here are great. You got Plasudasax, you got the Godskin Duo, or they're okay. And then you got Malekith, which is a top 5 From Software fight for me. Great area, great visuals, and it also gives me vibes of like Dragon Eerie. I've said that a couple times from like Dark Souls 2. Swamp of Aeonia, C tier. Ruin-Strewn Precipice. I'm honestly having trouble remembering what this area is. Looks to be a part of Altus Plateau, so I guess I'll put it S tier because I love all of Altus Plateau. I mean, if anybody could let me know, like, what is actually... Oh, Magma War... Oh, this is the back route to Altus Plateau. Oh, yeah, that definitely deserves S tier then. I love that as well. In every playthrough since I learned of the back way, I never do the medallion, like the Grand Lift Adectus anymore. I always go the back way now. I just love that feeling of discovery when you traverse that whole thing, fight the Magma Worm, and then you, like, climb up the ladder and just emerge, and you see all of Altus Plateau there. Absolutely love that. Stormveil Castle is gonna go S tier for me. Great dungeon, great enemy placement. That's one thing I love about this area. The enemy placement here is amazing. Some of the best in the game. It feels like a classic Dark Souls area. It's like, it's laid out just perfectly enough without being too insanely difficult and without being too easy. It's a great starter area. It's very well balanced in the early game. And obviously, Godric. Godric is just chef's kiss. Honestly, if Godric happened later in the game and was just like a little bit more difficult, I think he would be in most people's top 10 fights from the game, at least. That boss is slept on way too much, but at the same time, it is also kind of the fault of him being early in the game and just kind of... He's actually easier than Margit, at least in most cases, depending on if you leveled up enough before you got there. Caria Manor, it'll go B for me. There wasn't a whole lot there. The bosses there were decent, but were pretty easy. This is also home to Ranni's quest, so, you know, we do gotta put some respect on it for that. And, well, there is some great story and lore moments here. So, you know what? Yeah, I'll keep that an A. Volcano Manor is gonna go S tier for me. Again, the quest, the bosses, and the fact that there's a whole underground hidden town tied to this quest that is so easily missable. I also loved getting to play Agent 47 for the people here at the Volcano Manor. That was pretty fun. Rykar boss fight speaks for itself. Chef kiss. Grand lifts. I don't know. They'll go A. I mean, they're just lifts. Put it S just because they're important. They take us to important areas, so I'll put it S. I don't know. There's not else to them, really. Miquella's no. F tier, F tier. Screw the Haligtree. On repeat playthroughs, when you know what you're doing, it's not bad, but on a first go-through, I don't wish that on my worst enemy. Frenzied Flame Prescription. That's gonna go S tier. Hey. If y'all haven't done the Frenzied Flame ending, and if y'all don't understand what this means, go do it. It's pretty simple. You just gotta traverse the sewers of Altus Plateau, and then you get naked and touch a door, and then you're able to see this cutscene. 10 out of 10. Definitely recommend. Ainsel River is gonna go B for me. Not a bad area, but not very memorable. I mean, there's a few bosses here, but it's okay. It's not as good as, like, Nokistella or Siofra River. Like, it's not bad, but it's also not as good as any of the ones in the A tier, so I'll put it in B. Also, just remember that most of the areas in this game are, like, near perfection, so if one's in C, it still means that it's, like, it's pretty amazing. It's just, it's not as amazing as the ones up here, but the ones in F tier, well, yeah, these speak for themselves. These are actually just genuinely terrible. Beastial Sanctum. I am having trouble remembering what this one is, too. Oh, wait, I remember this area. Was there anything important here? Anything, creatures, and no regular... Okay, yeah, there wasn't really anything that important up here. That's why I'm not remembering it. I'll put it like a solid B, I guess. Stormhill. It's just like the in-between between Limgrave and the Stormveil Castle, right? I don't know. A? Again, it's part of the opening area in Limgrave, and all of Limgrave is S tier for me all day. I honestly could not think of a better way to open up Elden Ring. Limgrave was the perfect opening area in almost every single aspect for Elden Ring. It taught the player everything that they needed to know without holding their hand and gave them a feel for the game and how progression in the game was going to work. It's also not overly confusing trying to figure out where you're supposed to go. The Shaded Castle, C, I guess. I don't know. This place wasn't very memorable here. The only thing here is the boss. Outside of the boss, there's like nothing to this area. Cool area, but it doesn't even touch the ones in the B tier. Four Belfries is cool. It'll go B for me. The only reason that I can even think to go here is to get the key so then you can warp back to the Grafted Scion, which I always love that whenever you die at the beginning of like a Souls game and then you have to warp back later to try and fight them again. I like stuff like that. It'll go B. Windmill Village will go B for me. Again, not too much memorable happening up here. Not a bad area by any means, but the only reason I can think to even go up here would be to get the Common Azure spell. Outside of that, this is just an in-between point between Altus Plateau and the Volcano Manor, really. Divine Towers, I'm pretty sure their only purpose is to activate your Great Runes, and since Great Runes are pretty important, I'll put it in B, but besides that, not too much happening there. Castle Morn, I've been there. What is it? What is at that place? Leonine, Leonine Misbegotten, yes! Okay, now I remember it. S tier, we all love the Porcupine Sword. Once again, another amazing dungeon found in the game, and you can get to it pretty early on without too much trouble. And the fact that you get a sword that looks like a porcupine for killing the boss there, it deserves the S tier. Actually, no. In good faith, can I say S tier? Yeah, it'll go A tier. And actually, while I'm thinking of it, we're gonna drop the Grand Lifts down to B, because even though they are important to getting to, like, you know, other areas in the game, it wouldn't be fair to, like, put it up there in the S tier. So I'll leave that in B, and then Castle Morn definitely deserves A. Flame Peak and the Forge of the Giants. Oh, God. Fire Giant. I want to put it in F tier, but that wouldn't be fair, because even though I despise Fire Giant with a passion and think that everything is wrong with him from a game design perspective, that really wouldn't be fair, so we'll put it in C tier because the area itself is cool. I like the aesthetic of it. I love snowy areas in games. I hate Fire Giant, but after After beating him a couple times, I can live with him even if he is a terrible boss. It'll stay in the C tier. And then the Subterranean Shunning-Grounds. This is just where you fight Mohg when you're on the way to the Frenzied Flame prescription, so... B, I don't know. That Mohg fight, it was alright. It wasn't anything special. Parkour area here does kind of suck, though, so you know what? That's gonna go C. The parkour isn't terrible, I hate parkour in Souls games, I'm gonna be honest. Can't wait to hear the reactions on this one, but this is my tier list. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Please let me know. I'd love to hear from you guys. Please keep the toxicity to a minimum. I know some people won't be able to help themselves, but I look forward to those of you that are actually mature enough to carry out a conversation and share your opinions. As always, a shout out to the patrons and channel members: Karma's Fake Grandma, Lil Bitty Tab, Big Daddy Matty, Chalupasaurus Rex, Razak, Polar Ray, De Webster, Lamas, Bianca, Spurgatory, Dribbicasant, Mellow, Last King, Desperado, Mason Irving, T, Jerome, Y15, Flame 71, and Aaron Reynolds. Thank you guys for watching. Have an amazing day. Stay beautiful. I love you all, and remember, don't go hollow. Peace.